Hello everyone, and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Luna's heart raced in her chest like a steady rhythm, drowning out the crowd's murmuring. She was 6 months pregnant, her tummy a soft curve beneath the ill-fitting gray suit she'd been assigned for the trial. The baby kicked quietly, a reminder of the life she was carrying, one that deserved more. She wanted to shout, beg, and show them all that she was not the monster they believed she was. But the words hung in her throat, knotted with fear and despair. "Your Honor." Luna's weak and quivering voice broke the hush. I beg you, please. I did not intend for any of this to happen. I am not a bad guy. I am carrying a child. Please have mercy." Her hands automatically moved to her tummy, holding the baby within her as if she could protect it from the condemnation falling on her. The judge, a severe woman with silver hair tied into a tight bun, looked over her glasses. Her expression was unreadable, but the tiny tightening of her lips indicated she had heard such cries before. "Ms. Nozawa," she began, her voice piercing through the room like a blade, "the evidence in this case is overwhelming. The court has heard the charges against you, which include fraud, blackmail, and conspiracy. Your pregnancy, while sad, does not free you of responsibility." Luna's legs collapsed, and she grabbed the table's edge to support herself. Her lawyer, a jittery man with a poor suit and a permanently furrowed forehead, placed a touch on her arm, but it did not provide any comfort. She could feel the courtroom's eyes on her, judging and condemning. Among them sat Sheila Carter, Luna's alleged friend, whose betrayal had been the final nail in her coffin. Sheila's expression was one of pity, but Luna knew better. Those crocodile tears concealed a heart as calculating as Bill's. "How is this possible?" Sheila muttered to the woman next to her, loud enough for Luna to hear. "How could she do this? I thought I knew her." The words cut deep in Luna's gut. Sheila had discovered Luna's secrets and handed them over to Bill with a smile that promised both loyalty and disaster for her. Luna wanted to shout at her, demanding to know why she'd turned against her, but her voice was silenced by the weight of her reality. Finn, Luna's brother, sat in the back of the courtroom, face pale and hands locked into fists. He was taken aback, not just by the impending verdict on Luna, but also by the unraveling of the sister he thought he knew. Finn had always been her guardian, believing in her even when she questioned herself. But now, when he stared at her, there was a flash of uncertainty in his eyes, a query that went deeper than any accusation. "Did I ever truly know you, Luna?" The trial had been a frenzy of disclosures, each more damaging than the next. It all started with a single lie, a desperate attempt to provide a future for herself and her pregnant child. Luna had spent years working for Bill Spencer's company, Spencer Publications, but she was usually in the background and overlooked. She was the calm one, the dependable one, the one who never asked for more than she received. But when she found herself pregnant and alone, with no one to turn to, desperation set in. It started simply with a falsified signature and a fudged expense report. Luna persuaded herself it was only temporary, enough to get by till she could stand on her own. But the lies developed, creating a web of deception that entangled everyone around her. She'd blackmailed a coworker to keep quiet about a bookkeeping issue, unaware that the colleague would come to Sheila for assistance. Sheila, ever the opportunist, had taken that knowledge directly to Bill. Bill Spencer was not someone to be trifled with. He was known for his ruthlessness in both business and life, and he perceived Luna's actions as a personal betrayal rather than a cry for aid. He had trusted her, or so he claimed, and her duplicity was a blow to his kingdom. When he faced her, his tone was cold and his remarks precise. "You thought you could play with me, Luna? You thought you could steal from me and leave?" She'd attempted to explain, to tell him about her fear, loneliness, and the burden of a future she couldn't carry alone. But Bill did not listen. He didn't care. He saw her as a liability, a loose end that needed to be wrapped up. So he'd fought for the most severe charges, ensuring that Luna faced the full force of the law. The prosecutor built a damning picture, displaying emails, bank records, and evidence from co-workers who claimed Luna influenced them. Each piece of evidence was a brick in the wall that closed in on her. Luna's lawyer had done his best to argue that her acts were motivated by desperation rather than malice. He had asked for mercy, given her pregnancy and lack of past criminal record. However, the jury's faces were stone, with their verdict already inscribed in their eyes. Luna's thoughts raced as the judge prepared to hand down the sentence. She remembered her long-deceased mother, who taught her to be tough and fight for what was important. She considered her unborn child, who deserved a mother who was not incarcerated. She remembered Finn, who had always believed in her, even when she did not believe in herself. And she remembered Bill's relentless quest of justice, or was it vengeance, had led her to this point.
Ms.
Nozawa, the judge's voice snapped her back to reality. This court finds you guilty on all counts. You are hereby sentenced to 5 years in state prison, with the possibility of parole after 3 years. Given your circumstances, you will be transferred to a facility that is prepared to handle your pregnancy and postpartum needs. This court has adjourned. The gavel landed with a piercing crack that resonated like a gunshot. Luna's legs gave way, and she collapsed into the chair, hands covering her face as tears rocked her body. The bailiff arrived, his face expressionless as he signaled for her to rise. She wanted to shout, beg one more time, but the words would not come. As she was led away, all she could do was cry hot, heavy tears. Finn stood in the rear of the courtroom, his fists unclenched as he watched his sister leave through the door. He wanted to run to her and assure her he'd figure out how to solve things, but his feet remained firmly planted. Sheila, on the other hand, slid out discreetly, her face masked with feigned sorrow. She'd achieved what she wanted, Luna out of the way, and her own place secured. However, when she went outdoors into the sunlight, she felt a pang of anxiety. Did she go too far? Bill remained seated, his countenance unreadable. He had won, but it felt hollow. Luna's screams rang in his head, her tear-stained face a ghost he couldn't shake. He convinced himself it was justice, and that she had brought it on herself. But deep inside, a small voice whispered that he'd crossed a limit, that his quest of justice had cost him something he couldn't identify. Luna's world had reduced to the cold metal of handcuffs and the sterile walls of a holding cell. She sat on the edge of a cot, hands resting on her tummy, feeling her child's weak motions. In that moment, she made a promise, not to herself, but to the life that was growing inside her. She would make it through this. She would face the years behind prison, the embarrassment and the loneliness. She would do anything for the chance to hug her child in her arms and apologize, promising to be better. The days after were a jumble of habit and sadness. The prison was a gray, lifeless place, its walls etched with the stories of those who had gone before her. Luna was assigned to a unit for pregnant inmates, a brief respite in an ocean of abuse. The other women were friendly, and some of them shared stories of their own mistakes and remorse. They taught her survival skills, such as keeping her head down and her heart guarded. Finn returned when he could, his face carved with shame and resolve. He told her he was working with a new lawyer who believed they could appeal the sentence. "We'll get you out, Luna," he vowed, his voice harsh. "I won't let you rot in here." She wanted to trust him, but hope was a frail thing that might be crushed by the weight of truth. Sheila kept her distance. Luna heard through the prison grapevine that Sheila had been promoted at Spencer Publications, her loyalty to Bill rewarded with a corner office and a raise. But the murmurs also told of fissures in her veneer, of late-night drinking sessions alone, tormented by Luna's weeping cries. Bill, too, was affected by the aftermath. He poured himself into his job, but the vision of Luna in that courtroom remained. He began to doubt his own intentions, wondering if his desire for control had blinded him to the human cost of his decisions. He avoided Finn, reluctant to confront the man whose sister he had condemned. Nonetheless, he couldn't bring himself to visit Luna and confront the results of his decisions. Months later, Luna gave birth in a hospital room under security, her wrists still chained as she hugged her daughter for the first time. The baby was little, with black eyes that appeared to gaze straight through her. Luna named her Hope, in silent defiance of the misery that threatened to take her whole. Holding Hope, she felt a glimmer of what she'd believed she'd lost, a cause to keep going, to strive for a future beyond the bars. The appeals process was agonizingly delayed, but Finn never wavered. He spent every free moment studying, consulting with lawyers, and rallying supporters. He wrote to Luna monthly, filled his letters with anecdotes from the outside world, and promises of the life they'd establish together once she was free. Luna clung to those messages, but she couldn't shake the feeling that freedom was an undeserved dream. Finally, a procedural error in the treatment of evidence resulted in a reduced sentence, which spared her. After 2 years, Luna walked out of the prison, holding Hope and waiting for Finn to take them home. The world seemed clearer, as if she were experiencing it for the first time. She was no longer the naive girl who had stepped into Bill Spencer's office years before. She was a mother, a survivor, a lady who had battled adversity and emerged stronger. Bill never reached out or apologized. But Luna learned from Finn that he had left Spencer Publications, stepping back to reassess his priorities. Sheila, too, had retreated from the spotlight, her ambition clouded by accusations of her role in Luna's fall. The world had moved on, as it always did, but Luna bore the scars of her past, a reminder of the cost of desperation and betrayal. Luna made another commitment while standing in the sunlight with Hope's small hand curled around her finger. She would live for her daughter, for the opportunity to be the mother she lacked and the sister Finn deserved. She would rebuild not for vengeance or redemption, but for the simple, unwavering sense that she was greater than her faults. And in that idea, she discovered the first steps toward healing, a future in which she might show mercy to herself. Bill, crisp in his suit and colder as stone, stood unmoving as he gave his verdict with a voice that didn't waver, even when Luna's knees sagged at his words. There are no exceptions. There are no delays. Justice requires no mercy. His tone was devoid of fury and sympathy, a hollow proclamation from a man who had already slammed the door in his heart. To him, it was the law speaking, not himself, but everyone watching knew he was the one who refused to bow. Luna's voice cracked as she said, "Please, not now. Not while I'm carrying a child. You don't need to do this to me. To us." Her words poured out passionately, unpolished and raw, as if the cry came not from her lips, but from the soul of every pregnant woman who has ever worried about her unborn child. She wasn't simply pleading for release. She was pleading for the opportunity to protect the baby inside her, a life that had never harmed anyone and didn't deserve prison walls as a cradle. Sheila, leaning forward with an expression of shock and inquiry, whispered under her breath, "How is that possible? How could he?" "Even Bill doesn't usually go this far," she said softly, cutting through the hush in the courtroom. She had witnessed cruelty, experienced it, and even created it at times, but this was different. This was cruelty disguised as legality, punishment dressed as order. Finn, standing in the rear, felt his chest collapse as if a weight had been dropped on it. He couldn't believe what he was seeing, how someone like Luna, who was frail, scared, and bearing life, could be dismissed as a problem to be kept away. His eyes burned and his hands tightened, but he said nothing. His disbelief was louder than any protest he could have raised. The bailiff reached for Luna's arm, his grip solid but not harsh, as if even he struggled with the effort. She startled at the touch and pulled her palm protectively over her stomach. The cuffs shook, the chains telling of what awaited her beyond the courthouse doors, the sound of locks, the smell of stone, the endless nights of loneliness where thoughts of liberation clashed with the cries of an unborn child screaming for light. Luna's voice cracked again. "Please allow me to have my baby peacefully. I'll deal with everything thereafter. Just let my child come into this world free." Her tears streamed down her face, unstoppable. The room shifted uneasily, and others averted their gaze, unable to face the sight of a lady crumbling before them. But Bill refused to look away. His gaze remained fixed on her, not in compassion, but in finality. "The law does not pause for convenience. Not even for you." The words sealed her destiny, and the gavel sounded like thunder over a broken landscape. The reverberation rang out, final and unrelenting, like a bell tolling to signal the loss of something valuable. The trek from the courtroom to the holding cell felt longer than any Luna had ever taken. Every footfall reverberated, her shackles scratching quietly, a harsh lullaby for the child she bore. She wanted to yell, fight, and reclaim her dignity, but she felt depleted, her spirit crushed by hopelessness. She recalled evenings alone in the cage, the shadows coming in, and the terror that her baby would be born without warmth or love, surrounded only by bars and guards and a mother's sorrow. Inside her head, she replayed every moment that had led her here, every mistake, every bad step, every time she trusted the wrong person. She considered whether she deserved punishment, but the thought of her unborn child made her back away from that concept. Punishment for her was one thing, but what about the innocent life within her? It was terrible. Sheila's remarks still echoed in the distance, whispering incredulity. Finn's horror was engraved in her memory. But none of it changed the fact that she was being led away, her cries ignored, her body a vessel carrying life into a world that seems prepared to embrace it with harshness. Luna pushed her hand to her belly as she sat in the dimly lit cage, the metal bed beneath her too hard to soothe her hurting body. "I'm sorry," she said softly to the youngster she had not yet met. "I wished better for you. I wanted sunshine and laughter, not walls and sorrow." Her tears soaked the thin blanket, her words wavering in the silence. The walls did not respond. The silence swallowed her apology, and the night stretched on, as ruthless as the decision that had brought her there. Life continued beyond those walls. Bill returned to his office. Sheila reflected on the violence she had witnessed, and Finn bore the weight of his unbelief. But for Luna, the world had shrunk to four walls, a barred door, and her pounding heart, which provided her with just enough reason not to give up altogether. So she waited, each second heavy, each minute a reminder that mercy had been denied to her. The child within her stirred, a little flutter that evoked both hope and grief. She smiled faintly through her tears, holding to the fragile fact that life continued to move even in darkness, and that maybe, just maybe, life would one day see the light she had been denied.